good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. And welcome to the Infinite Way, where spirituality meets humanity. I am your host, Dr. Enolia Harris Pedro, and I'm coming to you from Angola, Africa. And I'm excited to have returning Julie Cluff. And Julie, we did everything really formal the first time. Now you're back. You're like
I'm
family now.
back. Oh, that's
So
fun.
if you want to share a couple of things about yourself, please feel free.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in the United States. I think it's so cool that we're able to connect this way. What a miracle it is that we can be in totally different places in the world and connect in this way and connect with everybody who may be listening as well. So very fun. I I had a spiritually transformative experience on Mother's Day in 2007, and that was the day I was in a horrific rollover car accident. My two youngest children passed away, which we talked about on the last show. But that opened my spiritual world. Like, not, I went through what we commonly call the dark night of the soul that lasted 3 years of just immense pain. And then I was woken up to the light, and that led me to a journey of connecting with angels, connecting with my loved ones on the other side, connecting with other people's loved ones on the other side. And I actually began working as a grief specialist, a grief coach, and developed a program around that, and really felt that I channeled this information and this particular model of healing that I developed. And I was coaching with that model, and I was training other people to coach with that model to help people through grief. But along the way, a spiritual mediumship opened up, and that's the work that I do today. And so it's a beautiful thing to have that intersection of, be grief informed and be like really comfortable in the grief space, if you will, in the grief healing space, and also be able to connect with people's loved ones, to connect with their spirit guides, their angels on the other side, and bring forward information that's going to be valuable to them in their own experiences with life, and even in their own healing journey. So that's, in a nutshell,
In a nutshell,
who I
just
am.
a little bit of stuff, right? Well, I really want to talk more about the innerverse and how you shared about your mediumship, and why I call it and term it the innerverse is because I don't want to talk about things that are external to us. I love the way that the innerverse responds to the things that are external to us when
Yeah.
we trust it. And I want to talk about trust and trusting self and why this is so important, whether you're in your vocation as a medium or whether you're even just going on your day-to-day practices. And I'll share this because something happened to me. And nothing that's a big deal, but in terms of trusting self and trusting the signs and being able to pick up when your guides or when spirit is giving you a sign of something and how we tend to ignore it. So it's so funny, I'm a podcaster. I'm running around like, thank you for great people to interview and to speak with like yourself. And it's so interesting. A friend of mine introduced me to someone, and it was like, oh, you got to connect with this person. And, set up a meeting to connect with the person. And I missed the meeting. I just like, I might totally focus on somewhere else. And I'm like, okay, I apologize profusely, set up another meeting, and went to go meet with that person. And then the time zones were off and I
Oh,
missed
wow.
the meeting. And then finally, a third time, finally connected with the person. The person was fine, very gracious, very thoughtful, nothing that but put my arms up about, scheduled the podcast, and then time for the podcast to come. And I missed the podcast and the time zones were off.
Wow.
right? Or at least on my side, I perceived that the time zone was off, right? I meet with other people in that area, same time, no problem. But all of a sudden, this person shows up an hour ahead. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to reschedule.
Mm,
This is a sign that I'm ignoring, that my guides are telling me that maybe our energies are like this,
hmm.
and that this isn't where my conversation and my energy should go. And I want to get your thoughts about that because we tend to ignore. Like any other person would have said, oh, it's just me. I don't know. I'm being an airhead. No, I'm not. I don't miss appointments.
Yeah.
It's not my norm. When I set something up, I show up. I show up happily. I show up fully. And I'm thinking, why am I not showing up for this person? What's going on? This isn't me. And when we know our routines and we know how we navigate through life, and then it's off, why do we always sum it up to, oh, that was nothing. I just got to push and push harder. I have to be more clear. No, I don't. That's not my norm. So
Yeah.
something telling me, don't go there. What do you think?
So there's a few different things here. And I will say, like, for example, one of the examples that's coming to my mind is when I was teaching the grief coaching course. There was one week where there was a participant in the course, and we had excellent attendance. People showed up. You know, we had near 100% attendance in our course each week. And this particular person didn't show up one week. It was really unusual. And we wondered where she was. And so my assistant had reached out to her and they ended up setting up a private meeting so that she could do the coursework that she needed to do. What turned out in that private meeting was so special that it became very apparent because even this student who missed the class, she's like, I don't know what happened. It was the strangest thing. Like, I don't know how I missed the class. Well, then she ends up meeting with my assistant, and they have this very special meeting, very special personal meeting that was so obviously meant to happen and wouldn't have happened if she hadn't have missed that meeting. So sometimes we're at crosshairs and there's a reason why we turned right when we should have turned left. And it's a positive reason. And sometimes we turn right when we should have turned left because we were avoiding something that might not have turned out well. So it can be either or. When actually, in my head, I was like, do I share this or not? I'm going to share it. But when I married my first husband, there was a blizzard where we were living the night before we got married. We were driving up to the venue together, and the storm had ended. But the aftermath of the storm was a lot of ice and snow on the roads, and we had successfully driven through, down the highway. We get off the highway, and as we're getting off the highway, we hit a sheet of ice, like literally a sheet of ice on this overpass, on this exit, I should say. And we just slid. There was no control of the car whatsoever, and we just slid until we hit a truck that had also slid into the wall of the highway. And so I look back on that because that marriage did not end well. And I look back on that and crashing our car that morning of our wedding, and I think, oh, was this a premonition that? But I think it is looking back. I can laugh about it now because it's been so many years ago. But sometimes things happen that we can't fully. And here's the thing that I also said recently. I told somebody recently in an interview. I think we come to understand some things at a certain level. Like, for example, losing my two children in a car accident. And over the years, having these experiences that were pointing me towards the work that I'm doing now, that were leading me to start sharing my story, which I was completely resistant to. Um, I was actually being told to do that, by my guides for 2 years before somebody else said it out loud to me, and it was like lightning struck. Then it took me another 3 years to start to understand what that would look like. Then it took me, you know what I mean? It it
Yeah.
take it we have these experiences, and and we're living in the human plane. So our guides know that, generally speaking, when we change directions, like I've changed directions in my life many times, and
Yeah.
they've been pretty big shifts and changes. I have come to realize that I was being led to those bigger changes many years before I actually made the change. Because in our humanness, we need time. We are living in a time construct. I was just listening to today, actually, while I was eating lunch, I was listening to a near-death experiencer, and she was talking about being on the other side, and this is such a beautiful illustration. She was on this other side, and she was like greeted by all of her loved ones, and having this wonderful, beautiful reunion. And then she had this thought, this is great, but there's a lot of white light here. Where's the color? And as soon as she thought that, she was taken into this colorful landscape.
Hmm.
So that's the opposite of what we experience here, in that there is no the time continuum there is so different that we manifest our thoughts in an instant.
Yes.
Whereas
Yes.
here, it takes time for us to integrate what we're experiencing. When my kids passed away, looking back now, I can see that everything I needed for healing was available to me in the moment that they passed away. But in my humanness, I needed time.
Hmm.
I needed time to forgive myself. I needed time to integrate that they weren't here any longer. I needed time to begin to learn their spiritual nature, my spiritual nature, to begin to blend those two things, to understand things at a different level. I am still learning and growing. And we all are, because we're in an expanding universe.
Yes.
And we are part of that expansion. I don't know. That's a really long explanation for your brief question.
Well, I'm sitting here thinking about the fact that I know myself, and in knowing myself, the times that I have leveraged as lessons learned when I didn't trust my instincts and when I didn't trust or honor what I perceive as my guides telling me, don't do it, don't do it. Okay, you're going to be hard headed. Go ahead, do it. And then I go, how did I get here? And we told you not to do it. And I'm sitting here going, okay. And it's not that it's always, or that it only goes towards the negative connotation. It's about fully integrating, trusting self in a positive or negative or uh, 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 discerning,
Hmm.
discerning way. And we tend to overlook that and we go, oh, that's ridiculous. I need to just stop being ridiculous. I'm just going to do this. No. And I've come to that precipice where I get to the fork in the road and I've been going right, going right, and going right, and going right's not working. Why would I go right again? They're telling me something if I've gone right 3 times and it's not working. I need to go left. And I need to let go of what it is that I perceive that I require or I think I need, because it's not necessary.
Yeah. Well, and it does come down to developing our discernment. It comes down to developing our spirit communication because within us, and I put my hands on my heart when I say
Right.
within us, there is this, we are souls, we are spirit, we have a divine connection, even if we don't recognize, even if we don't acknowledge it. Everyone has a divine connection, and we can look at people and go, but do they have a divine connection? And we kind of, we question, but yes, everyone has a divine connection. And it's
And
whether or not we can, kind of like what you mentioned, whether or not we can um, pay attention long enough to the divine connection that we are, that is who we are, to receive the guidance on which way to go. Yeah, I'll give you an example for sometimes when, well, even early on. So this was, I don't even know, a few years ago. I had been receiving mediumship type messages. Like I had, I'd learned to connect with my kids, I'd learned to connect with my brother who's on the other side, but then I was receiving messages from other people. And I didn't quite know what to do with that, but I had a dear friend who I confided in, and she said, Julie, there's a reason that this is happening. What if you leaned into it? So I decided to lean into it, and when I did, I had two people that showed up. Like I was just sitting at my desk going, okay, I'm just going to lean into this, see who's here, see who wants to communicate. So two people came through and both were family members of previous clients, people that I had worked with months before. And the one gentleman that came through was the father of a former client. And one of the messages that he shared, so I was just writing down what they were sharing. And one of the messages he shared was, tell her that I'll be there when she gets married and when she has children. And when he told me that, I can't say that. I mean, I literally was telling him, I'm not comfortable saying that to her because I had known that she had had some very negative experiences with men, and I didn't know that she was even interested in marrying. And so it felt off to me. But here's to your point about left versus right, like which direction do we go? As I had that discussion with him, the message I was receiving was really strong to share that message. And so I trusted it and decided to include that in the message. And I shared the message with her later on. 2 months later, her aunt, and I hadn't seen her in months. I didn't know what she was doing. I had no idea what she was doing. But her aunt, who I was connected with on social media, 2 months later, posted a picture of this woman's wedding. So
wow.
when I sent that message to her, unbeknownst to me, she was actually engaged to be married. And
Okay.
I didn't know. And I feel full chills even sharing that story. But
Yeah.
it's like it's a dialogue, it's a discussion, and it's being quiet enough to feel into, and we develop this over time because I certainly did not have this 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. I was having experiences, but they were few and far between. And now I know that, oh, I'm always connected. And now I know that I can always go to that guidance. And I can always quiet the mind long enough to go into the heart to receive messages. Does that mean I always make the right decisions? Absolutely not. But I know that that guidance is always available to me and it's always there. And I find that less often I'm taking a left when I need to be taking a right. Less often I'm heading in the wrong direction. And so yeah, it's allowing ourselves to receive the communication. Another thing that I have noticed, and maybe you've noticed this too, is that when they have a message for me, sometimes it will come in triplet. So in other
Mm-hmm.
words, oh, I don't, again, a few years ago, the Akashic records came up. And I didn't know what they were at the time. I had no idea. But it literally came up 3 times in the same week. In fact, somebody asked a question about it in a class that I was teaching, and I just was like, honest, I don't know what that is, which is crazy to me now that I didn't, but I didn't. And then, but I was curious because this person asked this question about it. Then I was sharing with a friend about how I was sharing with a friend who was very spiritually open, and I was telling him about how I'd had this unusual dream. It felt like significant. And I was sharing this message with him, and he said, Julie, you were in the Akashic Records. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what somebody just asked me about 2 days before, the Akashic Records. So it was like multiple times in that week, Akashic Records were coming up. Again, I have full body chills in this moment sharing this. And I just had this knowing that I needed to learn about the Akashic records and be open to the Akashic records and know that I have an Akashic records guide, which I haven't talked about in a long, long time. But as I'm sharing this, I'm feeling their presence and feeling them acknowledging once again that I have an Akashic records guide. So
Yes.
this is all just, it's just all part of development. We want we want to understand everything at once. And this is what I find in myself, and this is what I find with clients when they come, a lot of times they're running the big pieces. Where am I going to be in 5 years?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
and I don't know that we're supposed to know where we're going to be in 5 years. I think we get to I think we get to become really familiar with our inner scape and our emotions and feel into, does this feel good or does this feel good? Where is it that it feels aligned with me? And you're just following that path and you're following your interests. I've studied astrology, I've studied human design, I've studied the Akashic records. I'm just following my passions. And then I'm led to this place where I'm not calling myself a spiritual medium. If you had told me, and I had started studying mediumship 3 years ago, but if you had told me 3 years ago I was going to be calling myself a medium, I would have said, yeah, probably not.
I
But here I
understand
am.
totally what you mean. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So if somebody had said to me, hey, Julie, you're going to be a spiritual medium, this is exactly what your work is going to look like, and blah, 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 5 years ago, I would have completely dismissed it. But in the feeling, in the journey, and just looking at the paths ahead and going, okay, which one feels most aligned? Which one does my heart leap at?
Yes, yes. Well, I want to talk about our guides and I want to talk about those beings that help us align and inform and share and because I'm sitting here thinking about should I share this or shouldn't I share? I'm going to share it. um you know we go through certain things. Like I went to Egypt, and then after I went to Egypt, I started writing, and I was writing a lot and a lot, and then I went to Australia, and I came back from Australia, and I can't put the pen down. I can't close the computer. I wake up in the morning and I'm literally saying, okay, I'll get up and I'll write, okay. And it's 3:30 in the morning. They're talking to me full blown, and I get up and I start writing, and I am so hyper focused. It's like living on two timelines. It's
Yeah.
I'm living on the timeline there, And I'm living in a timeline here where the practical things and the needs of the body and eating and so on and so forth has to take place in engagement with relationships and things like that. But I'm never not bound to that or not connected to that timeline that's taking the wisdom and informing me and asking me to produce what I'm producing. So here I am, I'm writing. I finished just doing my like 11th research paper. And you know, I'm writing books and the books are flowing through and I'm waiting for a forward to come back for the last book that I wrote, which is like number 9. And I can't explain it to people that it's flowing through me, not from me,
Hmm.
through
Hmm.
me. And then again, we come back to that same statement of trust. And we come and I want to talk about guides because most people think, oh, I have one or two or three. I think I have an entourage.
Yeah,
I
I
think they
think we
take
all do.
turns. I think they take turns talking to me on what they want me to focus on, where they want me to be, what I'm supposed to do next, flowing through.
Yeah.
And to trust that knowing and to trust what comes through and just, you know, I look back sometimes at my writing, I'm like, wow, I wrote that.
Yeah,
I wrote that.
I get that for sure.
What have your experiences been with that as it pertains to maybe even the mediumship? Because that's huge. You're not only do you have your own entourage, but your light shines so bright on the other side that it attracts those that you don't know, knowing that they can speak through you to their loved ones.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, the first time that happened, and I think maybe I shared that, you know, the last time we were talking, but the first time that happened when someone reached out to me from the other side that wasn't a family member, I was really surprised. I was really astonished, but also I had this deep knowing that he was there with me, and so the only thing I could think to do was write down the messages that I was receiving. But my that journey of doing what I'm doing now was challenging because the work that we do is so important and it's so sacred and it's so meaningful. And I could not, you know, having lost people close to me, I knew how important that communication was. And I didn't want to create any harm. I didn't want to put any doubt in someone's mind about the other side. And I knew that if I didn't actually train and learn, that somehow I might say or do things that would be hurtful instead of helpful. Like, I really just want to be of help. And so it took me a long time to get to that space where it was like, okay, I can be helpful now. But I will also mention, you know, it's interesting because, as you said, we're living in both worlds. And we all are, but I think some of us are a little closer to the other world than others, and that's okay. It doesn't make me special or it just make, you know, it's like some people were born to be a doctor and some people weren't. And some people were born to be a dentist and some people weren't. I mean, it's just this is the work that my soul decided to participate in, along with a lot of other work that I did in my life. And all of it was worthwhile and all of it was good and worthy. And everything that everyone is doing is good and worthy of our attention. But the you know, and so some my guides have called me the in-betweener. They've used that word with me before. They said, "You're an in-betweener." I'm like, "What do you mean by that?" And you're like, and it's that living in both worlds and trying to balance that. So what I would also suggest is if anyone is, you know, if you're listening to this and you're finding that you're being awakened in the middle of the night by your guides or by people who are trying to communicate with their loved ones, or and it's becoming disruptive to what you were talking about, like that balance, like we still have to eat and we still have to sleep and we still, we have relationships to build here. There's a reason we're here. So there's things to do here that's specific to this physical world. And then there's communication from the other side. So we can choose. We are sentient, beautiful beings that can choose. So the way my mediumship is a little different than some other people's in that I'm not someone that's walking down the street and I'm seeing everybody's loved ones around them and I'm getting messages from everybody's loved ones around them. No, but when I get on a call with somebody, I don't know who's going to show up that day. But as soon as I get on the call with that person and I start to talk to them, and then I look to my right, their loved ones, their guides, their angels are here. So it's like a boundary, like we would think of our house has boundaries. We have a front door. We might have even a gated yard or a garden. We might we have boundaries, and we don't just leave our front door open 24 hours on our house for a reason. Because we decide, they knock, we decide. Are they coming in or not? If someone's knocking on our door at midnight, we may decide not to answer the door. And so the same is true with our spirit guides. We can put up boundaries and we can say, I love that you're here. Thank you for being here. These are my hours, or this is how I work, or something along those lines. So I just want to offer that too, that we don't need to feel like we're always at the whim of our guides, or it's this interesting balance. And I think everybody has to find that balance between communicating with the other side and being here. And while I'm in physical, I don't think I'm meant to be communicating with the other side 24/7. I think
Hmm.
I'm meant to be here living a physical life, but part of my physical life is communicating with the other side. So it's opening the front door and saying, okay, time to work, let's open the front door. And I do have what I would call an open door policy with my spirit guides in that they know that if there's an important message, the door is always open. And at the same time, I don't leave the door open 24/7. I'm just like, yeah, if the house is burning down, come on in and tell me. Does that
Exactly.
make
They'll
sense?
wake up. Yes, 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 because they will wake you up. Trust
They
me, I know
will,
writing. It's the wake up. Okay, I'm getting up. I'm like, sometimes the message is so clear. I'm like, I actually am responding out loud back
right?
to, okay, okay, I heard you. You
I
know,
had
but
this, I had a big, I had an interview a couple, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I felt my guides the night before. And it typically, like occasionally, I will have discussions with them in the evening, but most of the time it's in the morning that I will, pull out my laptop and ask questions, receive answers, that kind of thing. But this particular night, I'd been traveling, and this particular night, I was feeling them so close, and I just felt like they had something to share with me. So I pulled out my laptop and I started a conversation with them. And I'm so glad that I felt them there and I felt their desire to speak to me directly about
mhm.
what was going to happen the next day because they gave me very clear guidance that I wouldn't have received any other way. And it was interesting to go back and reread that after after the event and see how beneficial that message was that they gave me. So yeah, it's we can we're never doing it wrong. We're just learning. That's all we're doing. We're learning. Yeah.
A lifelong learning.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that they wake you up early in the morning. I remember when I was writing my first book, the same thing was happening. I was being woken up really early in the morning. And what's so fascinating is my worldview has changed so much since that book came out 6 years ago. And yet at the same time, I read that book and I think that was coming through me, not to me. I read the book and I think, I didn't write this. I thought it at the time. When I would reread it, I was like, I didn't write this. And yet my worldview has changed so much. But
Yeah.
it's still a beautiful message of healing. So,
Yeah. Yes, I totally understand what you mean by that. I'm sitting here, there are so many things I wanted to comment on, so I'm going to backtrack a little bit, just grab a couple of things here and there. But one of the things that I love that you shared is that the door is not always open, and and I think that's a really, really huge important message to empaths, because what happens is that I engage and meet with people who are saying, oh, I get overwhelmed, I can't go out into crowds, it's too much. And that's because the door is open, the door remains open, it's open to any and everybody, and there's no ability to have that moment of peace, that moment of calm, that moment
mhm,
of quiet. And I one of the things that I always like to share is that, you can talk to your guides and ask and request things of them, you know?
yeah.
So for me, I do have a very active, and open flow of information. And so when I'm tired, I actually say, unless it's for my highest and greatest good, you need to stop all communication. I need just the time to rest. For my highest and greatest good, if you need to connect with me, connect with me. But until then, allow my rest to come. Let me have the peace and quiet that I need to shut down and to re-engage and to reinvigorate.
Yeah.
And people are like, you can ask anything of your guides, one of the other things too is that sometimes my field being open, I find myself tripping and nothing's there. Or, I bump my head and it's like, stop. You can get my attention without making me trip or fall or hit my head or anything like that. Okay, and then I was like, okay, guys, please, I need a break. Please, no one and nothing can communicate unless they go through you. They have to go through you. And if you determine it's for my highest and greatest good, I welcome it. And if you say no, then please, I need a break. And we can have these conversations with our guides. We can
Mm,
um, ask them to help us to navigate certain things when we need navigation. We can ask them to help us as we are trying to manifest certain things, and engage them as an active part of our lives. They're part of us. They're there to help us, to work with us, to share with us. Um and so that's a little bit of my take on the guides. And so when you talk about closing that door and opening that door, I'm like, that's their job. Okay, time to close the door. Please close the door, lock things up. And, okay. I have this beautiful prayer that I love to say. I got it from a dear friend of mine years, years, years ago, but it's always stayed with me. And it's just like, angels bless, angels keep, angels protect me while I sleep. Bless my heart,
mm,
my home, protect my spirit as I roam. Guide me, guard me through the night, wake me in the morning's light, and that just
beautiful.
allows me to just like,
Yeah. Yeah. One of the practices that my guides gave me about 6 months ago, and they wanted me to share it with people, is this idea of calm, clear, connect. And
mm,
when we have everybody's energy is different. So
yes,
everybody has the personal responsibility to manage their own energy. And I think one of the um, brilliant teachers and masters of this is Anita Morjani. She's just
Okay.
such a beautiful soul. I don't know if you've read her books or are familiar with her, but she wrote a book called Sensitive is the New Strong.
Okay.
And I recommend it to people who are very sensitive, who are looking for understanding about their sensitivity,
Hmm.
but managing our own energy is a part of our experience. And for many years, I didn't realize how empathic I was and how much energy I was picking up from other people. I had no idea. But I also felt I would feel things and think, I don't know where this is coming from. I don't know why I feel this way. Like I could not pinpoint anything in my world that was causing me to feel so down or so discouraged or so, frustrated or whatever it was. Like I just couldn't identify what it could be. But I was living with a lot of heaviness that I didn't understand. So over over the years, there's actually a coach of mine a few years ago who every time he talked to me, he would call me an empath. And I would
Okay.
say, I am not an empath. And he said, yes, you are. And every time he would say, well, as an empath, Julie, and I'm like, I'm not an empath. And he said, yes, you are. I was in complete denial. Because because it was showing up a little differently for me than it was for most people. Because I was a very linear thinker. I'm very left-brained. I'm less left-brained now, but I had a very left-brain side to me. But this calm, clear, and connect is really owning our own energy. It's
Hmm.
taking a moment and calming ourselves, like literally taking deep breaths, closing our eyes, putting our hand on our heart if that feels aligned for you. But that always feels good to me to put my hand on my heart because we have chakras in our hand and we have this heart
Yeah.
chakra. And when we put our hands on our heart, for me, it feels like I'm plugging into my soul. And so, putting your hand on your heart, sinking deeply into your chair, taking deep
Yeah,
breaths.
take us through it. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, let's just do it. Okay, so we're going to calm, clear, and connect. So if you feel comfortable, if you're in a space where you can close your eyes, where you can put your hand on your heart, I invite you to do that. And take a couple of deep breaths deep into your belly, just like feel your shoulders melting down as you breathe deeply and slowly, feeling your belly rise and fall slowly, shoulders loose, and scanning your body for tension and letting the tension go. Feeling your sit bones in your chair or wherever you're sitting, wherever you're laying, just feeling yourself melting into that surface, just relaxing every part of you. And then clearing your energy with the power of your intention. Your intention has great power. And with the power of your intention, clear your energy. Release anything that doesn't belong to you, any emotion, any struggle, any trouble that doesn't belong to you. Just release it. You don't have to know anything about it. You're just seeing or feeling that float away from your energy, from your being, from your energetic field. You may visualize it as gray or dark clouds of energy, just watching that just float away, leaving your field, and inviting anything else that is weighing you down to clear. This is the time to clear, clear. And again, with the power of your intention, if you're a person with clairvoyance, visualize the energy clearing. See it floating out of your fields. If you're a person who's very connected with angels, maybe you're asking your angels to assist you in clearing your field. If you're very clairsentient, very empathic, feel that energy leaving your field. So into this space of calm and clear, connect. Connect into the earth. From your feet into the earth grow deep roots, and experience those deep roots going deep into the earth, circling the center of the earth, growing out wide and deep, anchoring you in, grounding you. And from that space of grounding, come up through your body into your crown chakra, up to your crown chakra, up to the top of your head, and open your crown chakra and sense, feel, see the divine light coming in through the crown of your head, coming through your space, coming through your body, through your head, from ear to ear, from crown to chin, then down through your neck, across your shoulders. Follow that divine light as it goes down your arms into the tips of your fingers, down your torso, into your heart space, into your belly, into your hips, down your legs, into your feet, into the tips of your toes. And see that light expanding beyond your form into your energetic space, that bubble, your personal bubble that surrounds you. Your space is filled with this divine light. And come into your heart space and feel that light that is within you that is always connected to the divine. Your soul, your spirit, connected at your heart space. See that light of your heart, see it pulsing, and see it expanding. And from that space, you connect. You connect to your inner guidance, you connect to your eternal soul, to your higher self, and to your spirit team. And from this place of connectedness, take another couple deep breaths. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back into the room. Mm.
I love that you did that. Thank you so much.
Thank
In a
you. It feels good, doesn't it?
It does. And in a time when so many people are feeling overwhelmed, overwhelmed with media, overwhelmed with whatever the circumstance is, to just stop and take pause
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
is so important. So thank you. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. And you can do it as a 3-minute practice. You can do it as a 30-minute practice. You can do it as a 30-second practice. And just
Mm,
literally, you can be in a crowded room and feeling overwhelmed. And especially if you've done this for a few minutes each day or you have a meditative practice, it's when you have a meditation practice, which means just taking space, not necessarily sitting in lotus position doing a certain thing, but you can use this Calm, Clear, Connect as a meditative practice, but anytime we have a quieting practice like that, then when we're in a busy room and we suddenly feel overwhelmed and we feel like we've taken on a lot of energy, we can take pause. We don't
Mhm.
even have to close our eyes, but we can just say in our mind, calm, clear, connect. And with the power of of our intention, we are creating that safe space for ourselves again.
And you know what I think of? It's akin to being able to walk on a path, but really being the observer,
Yeah,
and that everything's going on around you and it's happening around you, but it's not happening to you.
right,
So it's almost like the world can be in, fast forward, but you're in slow motion
right. Yeah,
and loving that path.
yeah. It's interesting that you say, slow motion because what's so fascinating is the energy in the world is speeding up so fast.
Mhm.
Like it just feels like time is so different than it used to be. At least that's been my experience. Time is
My,
just
yeah.
flying by and it just feels just very different. My connection to time is very different. My understanding of time is very different. But also, interestingly, as time is speeding up, we're being invited to slow down. And that's fascinating. And I still haven't kind of worked out like there's
Felt that.
yeah, I haven't totally worked out like how does this work exactly? But yeah,
Because I
I
feel the
don't even
same
know
way.
it.
I feel the same way. It's like, time itself in passing through a day, even though it's just 24 hours, feels like we're passing through the day so rapidly and that things are moving so fast. And if you were able to see a clock, it would be going like this instead of like
Mm-hmm.
this. But yet, when I take pause and I have that moment, I can still allow it to speed up all around me and purposefully and discerningly slow in all that I do and all that I'm observing and all that I'm watching, and that I can watch things unfold in front of me without having to react and participate. And then when I choose to re-engage and participate, I just do, you
Yeah,
know? But I think that those moments are so important.
yeah,
How is
yeah,
it
I
for
think so.
you?
Yeah, this ability to, this is really our higher self. When we have the ability and the thought to rise above a situation and rather than be engaged in whatever's happening in that moment, to rise above as an observer, we're really engaging our higher self, which is so funny because it's, we're rising above and the higher self, and, it has that same feel to it. But we're engaging our higher self and we're viewing things from a different perspective. And we're allowing ourselves to almost take a scene or an experience, and rather than being right in the middle of it from that perspective, what I'm seeing is this almost like it's on a turntable and we're looking at it from all the different perspectives. And we're asking ourselves, like, how could I see this differently? What else could be happening? And I started to allude to this earlier, but I don't know that I finished my thought. But this idea that when certain things happen, a lot of times we as humans, we give it meaning. And then we start to see a higher meaning in something. And I think we have some higher understanding of something, but I don't think we grasp all that's within. that situation. And I don't know that we will until we move to the other side and we have a life review and we have this immersive experience of reviewing our life and seeing it from all these different perspectives and from all these viewpoints of other people involved. I
Mhm.
don't know that we can fully appreciate. I wonder sometime, I've had this experience of losing my children and understanding from my perspective that I can understand it in this space in this time that we had a pact with each other to do this work together, that they were going to pass young, that they were doing that and offering that as a blessing to
Mhm.
me and to humanity, anybody that hears of their story, that I had an opportunity to be in this space of sharing their story, sharing my story, and this new perspective. But I sometimes wonder when I get to the other side, I think it's so much bigger than what I can even comprehend in this moment. And I don't say that to say, oh, look how big it is, but it's just like, I think it's that way with everything. I think that every moment when I smile at somebody on the street or somebody helps somebody at a store or they just random interactions with strangers that ripple out and touch 1,000 lives in ways that we can't even comprehend.
Imagine. Yeah, yeah,
It's just
yeah.
so much bigger and we're so much more connected and there's so much oneness here that we can't comprehend from being in the space that we're in right now, this time and space continuum that we're in right now. But I think it'll be fascinating from the other side, and I can't wait to
I
to see
think
more of that.
we get tiny glimpses every once in a blue, 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 blue moon, if you're lucky in your lifetime, if you um are afforded that. And I truly believe that we don't actually get the brunt of it because it's so vast it would just blow our minds.
Yeah,
And
we can't
we
comprehend
didn't
it.
exactly, exactly.
I don't know if you've ever because you've done a lot of traveling. So I imagine that, before you went to Australia or before you went to Egypt, you had an idea of what you would experience, but actually being there and experiencing it, totally different world. So it's much
Totally
like
different
that. Like we can have this surface level understanding of something, but
understanding.
then when we experience it, wow. Did
Yeah.
I can't remember when we talked before, did I tell you about my experience with my daughter on her birthday last year? My daughter who passed?
I think you told alluded a little bit to it, but please, it's okay, share.
Yeah. So I had an experience with my daughter who, she passed when she was 10, and that's been 19 years ago now. And on her birthday last September, I had the house to myself, so I was communicating with her like I do. And one of the ways that I communicate with her and with her brother and with my brother, with her brother, my son, and with my brother, is sometimes I'll write letters and then I'll receive communication from them. And I say that, and I always recommend that method for people to connect with their loved ones on the other side. But I will tell you, I don't do it often.
Hmm.
I I I, I communicate more with my angel guides, and there's no right or wrong, but that's just the way that it has been for me. But when I communicate with my daughter, it's really interesting because she's no longer a 10-year-old child. When I communicate with her, she feels like an expansive soul. She feels like an angel to me when I communicate with her. So anyway, I was having this experience with her. I had the house to myself, so I was writing her and then writing what I was hearing from her. And in the process of that, she took me into what I can only describe like a mini life review where she
Huh.
took me into the experience of raising her. And she took me into memories that I'd forgotten about. She took me into experiences where I was harsher than I needed to be, or I was making decisions based on my egoic needs, not necessarily her needs. But it was so filled with love and compassion and understanding for who I was and what I was experiencing during that time period. It was immensely beautiful and healing and just I can't even there's no words to really express that what that was like, but it very much felt like what people have described as a life review. And then later that day I had decided to go to a movie. It was, early evening. The sun was starting to set, and as I was driving to the theater, by myself. I was by myself that day, and as I was driving to the theater, I looked up, and there was the sun in the sky, and then there were two clouds like this that looked like an angel. The sun was the head of the angel, and then these two clouds that literally did this expansive wings, and
Wow.
it just filled my soul with like just another confirmation. I'm not one to look up and see things in clouds, but this one took my breath away. And I tried my best to capture a picture. It's not great, but I was driving and I had a split second to take a picture, so I took a picture. And so I do have a picture of it. And then I got to the theater and I'm sitting in the theater waiting for the movie to start, and I realize I'm in theater 12. And that's the number that she started sending to me continuously a few years ago to kind of wake me up to the angelic realm and to wake me up to spirit communication in a way that I wasn't familiar with before that. And so it was just a beautiful, beautiful day. And I was so
Beautiful.
appreciative, but it was a magnificent experience to experience something like that in a way that I feel like is just a glimpse of what we'll experience on the other side.
Yeah, yeah. I think that that is a perfect place to just leave it. We've been talking for more than an hour, and I could talk to you all night. I absolutely love speaking with you.
It's been
Oh my
fun. Thank you.
goodness. It's been so much fun. And that I have chills from that message, that story that you just shared. And I haven't experienced writing my loved one, but my partner has. And he actually has written to his loved one to be able to come to closure on some things that were heavy on his heart and wanted to share and engage in. And it's such a beautiful process
Writing
to,
is so healing.
it is. It really, really, really is. So, with that said, oh my gosh, thank you, Julie. Thank you so, so much for joining us again and sharing your beautiful stories and sharing your heart the way that you have. Truly appreciate it. And if you could share with our audience, any last thoughts or any last words that you want to leave them with?
Yeah, well, I often share this and I let me just tune in for a second to see. Okay, so Um, I often share about like believing our spiritual experiences, leaning into them a little bit, but as I'm tuning into the angels, they're like, just express our love. Express
Mhm.
our love. There's only love coming from your spirit team. There's no judgment, there's no harshness. It's love. It literally is love. If we are in a hard place in our life, just know that they're just loving us. Even if we are responsible for the hard place that we're in our life, know that we have this team that is lifting us up off of the ground and tending to our scraped knees and tending to our wounds and really wanting to support us in our growth that is their whole intention, and that's the message that they have for you today.
Oh, thank you so much. And you are a person that does angel sessions and you
Mhm.
have readings and everything else. So I'm sure that people are going to want to reach out to you. Why don't you share with us how you can be reached and connected with?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm so you can find me on YouTube at Julie Cluff Coaching is my YouTube channel. And my website's juliecluff.com. And I'm on Instagram, Julie Cluff Coaching. I'm on Facebook, Julie Cluff. So yeah, it's just mostly my name.
Okay, beautiful,
And I would
beautiful.
love to work with anybody who's interested. I often tell people when I work with people, I literally am putting myself out of business because my job is to help people get connected so that they can receive these messages themselves. So
With the billions of people that are here, trust me, you won't stop working. We all have a huge job to do out here as light workers, and I'm so grateful for your contribution to humanity, the way that you've been doing. And also, I just want to highlight again that Julie is a grief coach, and that is something that is absolutely necessary and needed. I mean, we all go through the iterations of someone passing in our lives that are dear and near to our hearts. So to have help and support is imperative. It really is to help guide and facilitate you through that grief. So again, I wanted to highlight that about you also.
thank you.
So, if you like this episode, if you enjoyed the meditation and our conversation, please like and subscribe us. And I hope that you have taken the value out of this conversation. And if you have, share it with someone that you know needs to hear what has been said. And this has been another episode of The Infinite Way where spirituality meets humanity. I want to thank you, Julie, for joining us and taking your time out.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure connecting with you.
Thank you. And we will see you on the other side. Take care for now.